what is leadership? Leadership is essentially being a head of a business, a team, of a group of people. To be a leader, you effectively need people to follow you. So that's what leadership in its essence. And my ethos and my philosophy is that everyone is a leader, even if it's just of themselves. So it's focusing on vision, it's focusing on purpose of, creating that kind of like a vision of where are we going when you have a group of people to follow. So it might sound a little bit sort of esoteric and vague to young people, especially. And, one of the comments I get, especially from women who are in senior leadership positions, like, oh, well, I don't see myself as a leader, because I'm like, well, why do you not? It's like, well, who do you see as being a leader? And they will, it's like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, I don't know, even like Angela Merkel, people who are in these positions of power, of influence, of leadership, where they're leading countries, or like, billionaires leading huge businesses. I think that is a false idea of what a leader is. You can be a leader of your family. You can be a leader of your, basketball team. You can be a leader of just even of yourself, of your own vision for where you want to go in your life. So leadership is in all of us, and leaders come in all shapes and sizes.
I really want to dig in terms of, I guess, what makes a good leader and how you sort of construct that for yourself. But I guess being more specific in the business space, and as well maybe the personal development space, how do you become a good leader?
How do you become a good leader? I think it starts with yourself. I think one of the most important qualities that you really need to hone is self-awareness. So it's realizing, what are you passionate about? What amazing qualities do you have, and how is it helpful to the world? So a very recent mentor has said to me, like, think about it in three things. What is it that you're really passionate about? What do you feel that like lights your fire every day? What activity that you're engaged in that makes you feel really happy or, enthusiastic? And then take a look and underline the things that you have written, what will be valuable for somebody else. So this idea of it being useful for someone. And then the third thing is like, what can I really realistically put myself into? What am I good at, essentially? So, and having that thing at the very end, because that can be very limiting, especially when you're a young person and you're still kind of figuring out what you enjoy. So I think self-awareness is what makes a great leader. So really focusing on yourself. And I think sometimes it can be perceived that it's a very selfish thing, but I actually think it's not, because it's looking into like, what can I bring to the world? Like, of what value I can bring to the world, as opposed to, oh, I'm just going to do that because I, really enjoy that and kind of like stuff everybody else. So it's the self-awareness piece. The second thing that I talk about is this idea of social intelligence. So being able to understand how groups of people operate. So, say you're at university and I don't know, you're a captain of as I said, basketball team or hockey or whatever, your position is about engaging and getting the best out of your team and understanding how each individual kind of works amongst themselves. So that's what I mean about social intelligence, being able to understand how groups of people operate. And then the third thing, and I think this is the one that's really underestimated, is continuous learning. So in the beginning, you kind of, early stages, you can either be already aware that you don't know what you don't know, or you can have the arrogance, like the arrogance of youth, which is also helpful in its way, but I'll talk about the negatives, where, you're kind of arrogant that you think you know everything. And as you get older and wiser, you realize that the more you know, the less you actually know about the world. Yeah. And so it's this ability to learn new things, to always have a beginner's mind. And one of the main qualities that I think we are looking for in leaders of today is this ability to handle criticism and be aware of the things that you don't know and have someone challenge you on the things that you don't know. So I would say those three things. So self-awareness, social intelligence, and continuous learning. So I think that's what makes a good leader.
Got you. And would you say it's different depending on, I guess, the generations? Because things have really changed. If you compare it to, say, leadership, say like even 20 years ago, what it meant to be a young leader. Whereas now there's different things, there's different sort of people saying what leadership is. There's different, I guess, obviously like the social media, and there's different aspects to it. But for you, looking at, I guess, how the term leadership and how, like what makes a good leader, how that's sort of changed in the last sort of few years. Is it generation specific, or has that remained the same?
Our expectations of leaders have changed. So in the past, we would equate leadership with power. So when, some of the guests that I mentioned earlier talking about, well, I see Elon Musk or, whoever, as a leader, I think a lot of it we're referring to somebody who has a lot of power. And power is, like the old saying goes, like let me see if I can phrase it correctly. You are not given power, you take it. So that's how we see power. With leadership, it's the opposite. With leadership is that you don't ask for it. It's given to you. It's being decided by the people who decide to be under your leadership. So I think that is the difference. And I think now we are not so much respectful, but we are moving away from having there's like an autocrat of somebody who holds the ultimate position of power and responsibility, where they say, this is how it's done and this is how you need to do it. It's going the other way. And especially with the rise of the knowledge worker, with, people having jobs that are not necessarily producing a product, lots of services, where you're dealing with information, you're dealing with relationships with people who are experts in their field. And then you have a leader who may not be an expert in that field at all, but their job is to make sure that all of these different parts are operating in this kind of perfect unison. And so that requires somebody who is not an expert in any of those functions, who doesn't necessarily know how to get things done, but how do you get this person to create the right atmosphere and the right conditions that these experts will thrive. And the experts do not thrive on being told what to do because they know more than the person who's leading them. So I think that's the shift.
I think the answer you gave is very sort of interesting, because the way that I see leadership personally is, I think, maybe different to say how a lot of, especially like young males, see it, because they see it with what I've seen is they want to sort of do their own thing. They want to live life on their own terms. And I do too, to some extent. But I think what they see sort of leadership is them being able to tell other people what to do. Whereas I really see it as the opposite way of me being a leader. I don't like, the way that I see it is the people that work for me, I serve them. They don't serve me. It's the opposite. And it's all about responsibility. And it's more of a burden rather than, but it's like a burden that you accept.
Yes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not something that, you're not telling them what to do. They're telling you how to serve.
Yes.
That's the way that I see it.
This is something I want to talk about as well. This is something that we see in popular culture as well. So think about the characters like Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, even Harry Potter from, Harry Potter. They didn't want to lead. They didn't want to be the chosen one. They didn't want to, do the difficult thing. They didn't want that responsibility. But something inside them was like, I believe in this so deeply that I have no choice. Like, if I don't do it, other people won't do it. And I think this is something that great leaders do, is that they harness that special thing inside them that kind of tells them where they need to go. It's this access to intuition where you realize like what your purpose is. And again, like finding your purpose, like a whole big subject in itself. But there is that driving force that it's almost like you can't help but do it. Like you're pulled towards it. And we as human beings, we respond to that. And without going down this kind of, again, this like woo-woo, like energy thing, but we have mirror neurons in our brains. So, when somebody is sad or somebody is happy, we, even if, on any kind of level of, autistic scale, we still are able to perceive what the other person is feeling. And I think this is what leaders do, is that they genuinely feel something that other people can like relate to. And I think it's very difficult to put it into words, but it is also a feeling. It's something that when you go to an event, I don't know, you go to a Tony Robbins event and you just feel that energy, you kind of like, it fuels you, you get inspired by it. And not all leaders are, extroverted, kind of like rock star on stage. There are more quiet ways of doing that, but it elicits some kind of an emotion in you that is beyond just, oh, I have to do this thing. It's like, it's something that you also feel like you're compelled to do.